All right, boys and girls, so today we're going to be going over Spiral Day 2, which is just going to be more practice questions on topics that we've already learned. So as I read number 1, it says a satellite television company charges a one-time installation fee and has a monthly service charge. So I'm just going to highlight what's important here, which is the one-time installation fee and the monthly service charge. Okay, I know that if it's a one-time fee, this is a number that should have no variable attached to it. Because if it's a one-time fee, you pay it and it's done. Anything that has a variable means I'm paying it more than one time, like a monthly service charge. Every single month you're going to pay that amount. So a monthly service charge has a variable. And again, I know that because I'm paying it more than one time. So again, paying more than one time. Okay. And then it tells me that the total cost is going to be modeled by that function y equals 40 plus 90x. So I'm just going to go ahead and highlight that. Anytime they give us some type of formula, it's always a good idea to highlight it. You're most likely going to have to use it. And then it's asking which statement represents the meaning of each part of the function correctly. So if I look at the first, second, third, and fourth choices, just because it's multiple choice, I'm going to try to use process of elimination to help me out here. So I can see 1 and 2 are saying y is the total cost. 3 and 4 are saying x is the total cost. Well, I know the answer has to be 1 or 2 because I'm taking all that money that I'm paying, and when I add it together, I should be getting my bill, that total amount that I'm going to pay. So it has to be 1 or 2. That's what y represents. Then it says that x is the number of months. X is the number of months. So far that's matching. So I'm going to keep going. This is where it's different. $90 is the installation fee. $40 is the installation fee. Well, I know that the installation fee is a number that should have no variable. So the installation fee has to be 40 because it doesn't have a variable. So 40 is the installation fee. So it has to be choice 2, which means that 90, since it has the variable, 90 was actually the monthly service charge. All right, number 2. So I know in yesterday's lesson I had gone through just practicing plugging in the multiple choice answers to figure out what's true. Today I'm going to take a minute to just refresh our memories on how you would actually solve an equation like this. So I'm just going to rewrite it on the side. 4x squared minus 100 equals 0. And our first step is always drawing those train tracks so that we can keep our work organized. If I want x, that means I don't want 4, 2, and negative 100. Well, 4 and 2 are hanging out pretty closely with x. It looks like that's his best friends. So I'm going to get rid of that negative 100 to start. So the opposite of a negative is a positive. So I'm going to add 100 to both sides. Always making sure I'm organizing my work. So now I only have a 4x squared left over with 100 on the right-hand side. Well, next I'm going to get rid of the 4 because the opposite of multiplication is division. And we usually have division as our last step. But because there's an exponent here, that will actually be our last step. So the opposite of an exponent, the opposite of squaring, would be square rooting. So I'm going to take the square root of both sides. That gets rid of the little 2. So now all I have left is x equals. And then don't forget the square root of 25 is positive and negative 5 for choice 3. Because 5 times 5 is 25. Negative 5 times negative 5 is also 25. So just be careful. Okay, number 3. It says, which point is not on the graph represented by that function? So again, just like always, first thing I'm going to do is highlight the function itself. It's always a good first step. And then it's really easy to get this question wrong because if you don't read it super careful, you're going to miss the other really important keyword. It's asking which point is not on the graph. So if I were to take this equation and type it into y equals, That's really the easiest way to get this answer. I could plug in these x, y values for x and y in the function and kind of test all of them out. But if you had a graphing calculator, it would be easier to just type this into y equal and then look at the table. So that's what I'm going to write on the side here. Type into y equal and then look at the table. I'm checking for one of these points that's not on my XY table. So if I check XY, when X is -6, Y is 12. That is on the table. I'm looking for what's not on the table. So that was not an answer. It turns out that this XY coordinate was also on my table. So it has to be 3 or 4. When I checked, when X is +3 on my table, my Y value was +12. But this choice is saying it's supposed to be a -6, which I know is incorrect. So the final answer is actually choice 4. I know that 4 is a point that is not on my table. And if you have that Calculator X app, feel free to definitely type this in and hopefully you'll be able to check and see that this 312 was on the table, 3-6 was not on the table. All right, number 4, it says a company produces X units of a product per month where C of X represents the total cost and R of X represents the total revenue for the month. So I know that the total cost is C of X and I know that the total revenue is R of X. The functions are modeled by, well, C of X equals this 300x plus 250, and R of X equals this function right over here. So again, anytime they give us a function, it's always a good step to just highlight the function because we're most likely going to have to use it to get our answer. And then it says the profit is the difference. Difference is another key word. I know difference means to subtract. So I want to subtract my revenue and my cost. I want to subtract my R and my C. And that's what they're doing in this final equation. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight that as well. And then in order to answer the question, it's asking what's the total profit. So what is P of X going to be? Well, I know that P of X is R of X minus C of X. And I know what R of X is going to be. They gave it to me. And I know what C of X is going to be. They gave it to me. So now I'm just going to plug them in. Well, R of X is actually that negative 0.5x squared plus 800x minus 100. And I'm going to put that in parentheses because anytime there's more than one term, or really anytime you're plugging in for something, you always should be using parentheses. And then we have minus C of X. C of X is 300x plus 250. And again, whenever I'm plugging in, I should be replacing it with parentheses. Okay, let me slide this up a little. So now I want to go back and get rid of those parentheses so I can finish up this question and call it a day. In order to get rid of parentheses, I want to find what that coefficient, that number in front is going to be, so that way I can distribute it and solve. So even though I don't see a number, I know it's really there. It's the imaginary 1. Same thing here, only it's really an imaginary -1. Again, I'm distributing to everything inside for the positive, and now I'm going to distribute to everything inside for the negative. I know that anything times 1 is itself. So none of these guys are going to change. I'm just going to rewrite them. Negative 0.5x squared plus 800x minus 100. But these will. So negative 1 times 300x is negative 300x. Negative 1 times 250 is negative 250. And then I'm going to go back and combine my like terms so I can be done. So this first term has an x squared. Nothing else does. So I'm going to go back and check, since it's multiple choice, can I eliminate any answers right now? Unfortunately, no, because they're all there. Okay, next. I see that we have a positive 800x and then a negative 300x. So 800 minus 300 is 500. So far, we should have negative 0.5x squared plus 500x. And that's what I get when I combine these guys. So now I'm going to check plus 500 plus choice 3 as a minus. That's not the answer. And then last but not least, I can always combine numbers together. So I know that negative 100 minus 250 is actually negative 350. So I'm going to check that last ending, and I can see that choice 2 should have been my final answer. Okay, next page. If I look at number, what is that, 5? It says, what is one point that lies in the solution set of the system of equalities graphed below? Okay, I know that when I see the word solution set, in class, whenever we were graphing with a solution set, when it came to a system of inequalities, we always used a really big S. So that's what I'm going to add to my graph right off the bat. And I know that a system of inequalities, it just means that there's going to be more than one inequality. Okay. So now I'm going to go ahead and just check which one of these points is going to be in the solution set, which one's going to be an answer. So if I check 7, 0, well, positive 7, 0 is right here, and it's actually right in the S. So I know that 1 has to be the answer, so that was pretty quick. But I know it's not going to be 2, 3, or 4 because choice 2 is 3, 0, and 3, 0 is on those lines. That's not going to work because I know a solid line means that my answers are included, and a dashed line means that they're not included. So 3, 0 only works for the solid. It does not work for the dotted. It's not 2. 0, 7 is right up top here. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that's on my solid line. But again, I really want to be in this double shaded area. This is way too far off, so it can't be 3. Has to work for both. And then number 4, negative 3, 5. Well, negative 3, positive 5 is right over here. Nowhere even close to my solution set, so I know it can't be choice 4. All right, number 6. It says we have a population that initially has 20 birds that are approximately doubling every 10 years. Okay, I know that as soon as I see the word initial, that's a key word. It means that's my starting value. So I know I'm starting at 20 birds, and I know that it's going to double every 10 years. If I'm doubling, that means to multiply by 2. And then it says which graph is representing this situation here. I'm going to start off by first checking, well, if I know that I have to start at 20, that's my initial value. That means that at 0, before I've done anything, I better be at the number 20. I want to start at 20. And that's not happening here on choice 1. If I look at choice 2, before I've done anything, did I start at 20? Yes. Did I start at 20? Did I start at 20? Yes. So 2, 3, and 4 are right now possible answers. So now as I continue reading for my next key piece of information, if I want to multiply by 2, this is telling me that my graph is actually going to be exponential. You're going to learn more about this word next week, but I know that it's got to be exponential because, again, I'm using multiplication. And if I look at choice 4, this is not exponential. This is something that you all know very, very well. It's linear. So I'm just going to write that on the side. I know that if something is linear, it uses addition or subtraction to get from one value to the next. And I know that doubles is not using addition or subtraction. It's using multiplication. So choice 4 can't be the answer either. Has to be 2 or 3. So now I'm just going to check if I'm doubling every 10 years. That means I'm multiplying by 2. So 20 times 2 is 40. 40 times 2 is 80, right? My numbers are getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So from left to right, I should be getting bigger. From left to right, these values are getting smaller. And that doesn't make sense. So it has to be choice 3. Okay. And then the last page. If we look here at number 7, it says, which situation could be modeled by using a linear function? All right, so that's going back to what I was just saying a minute ago. I know that if I'm looking at a linear function, those only use addition or subtraction to get from one value to the next. So if I look at number 1, we have never ever seen a percent when we're talking about something that is linear. So it couldn't possibly be choice 1. Number 2, I'm seeing that keyword doubles again. I know that if something is doubling, it means that I'm multiplying by 2. Just like if I was tripling is to multiply by 3. So this couldn't be the answer either, because again, I'm only using addition or subtraction for linear. So it has to be 3 or 4. If I jump down to choice 4 and I just look here at that 1/3 every hour, it says that the concentration of medicine in a person's body is decaying. I know that decay means to get smaller. You're actually going to learn about this word in the next unit as well. So decay means to get smaller. But it's getting smaller by 1/3. So I'm just going to make up an example here so you can see why choice 4 is also not the answer. So let's say I started with the number 9. What's 1/3 of 9? You got it, it's 3. And then again, what's 1/3 of 3? Because every hour I'm cutting that thing in thirds. You're right, it's going to be 1. So how do I get from 9 to 3? Well, if I were using addition or subtraction, it would be like minusing 6. And then how do I get from 3 to 1? Well, I wouldn't be subtracting 6, I'd be subtracting 2. This does not show me a linear relationship, which means it's also not going to be 4. Has to be choice 3. And I know it's choice 3 because I'm not only seeing the keyword plus, which tells me that I'm going to be adding at some point, but it's also this per minute. I know that every minute I'm going to get 20 more cents. So after 1 minute, I have 20 cents. 2 minutes, 40. 3 minutes, 60. Are you with me? So I know that it has to be choice 3 just from process of elimination, but also because these keywords are telling me that 3 represents a linear function. And then last but not least, number 8, it says which expression is equivalent to the x to the 4th minus 12x squared plus 36. So this is another key vocab word that we've gone over a few times now. I know equivalent means equal. So if I want to take this expression, because there's no equal sign, so it's not an equation, it's an expression, and I just want to rewrite it for a minute. As soon as I see these double bubbles, I know that they're somehow taking this and breaking it down. So when I say breaking it down, I mean factoring. So whenever I have a trinomial, I want to think of that ABC factoring. This is just one method to get the answer. I'll show you a separate method after. So if you can recognize that this is ABC factoring, well, I know that I'm going to take this x to the 4th and I'm going to break it down so it becomes x to the 2nd. And now I want to check what's going to multiply to 36 but add to negative 12. Well, I know that 6 times 6 is 36, and I know that 6 plus 6 gets me 12. So right now it looks like 6 is that magic number, especially since it's multiple choice and they all are using a 6. But now I have to be careful because I need to add to a negative 12, not a positive. So if I make both of these negative, let's just try that out. Well, a negative times a negative is a positive, so that worked. And negative 6 minus 6 is negative 12. That works as well. So I know that it has to be choice 1. Another method that you could have used, which is pretty lengthy, especially if you don't have a calculator at home. So this is no calculator methods that I'm showing you right now if you do not have a calculator. So I could have also said, well, if I know that these have parentheses around them, parentheses tell me to multiply, right? So if I were to rewrite that x squared minus 6, x squared minus 6, I could have technically distributed to both guys, found all my terms, and then combined them and checked, well, did I get that equation at the end? Because if I did, choice 1 is the answer. All right, so that was a second method to get your final answer. And then a third method would have been the easiest possible method, which is what I would have done if we were really in school. And that's just going to the calculator. So I would have typed into y equal that x to the 4th minus 12x squared plus 36. And I would have typed that into y1. And then underneath in y2, I would have typed in choice 1. Exactly how it's written, parentheses and all. And then you would have looked at the table. And if the tables matched, which they should have, then you know 1 is the answer. And if they didn't, you would have just cleared this out and you would have typed in choice 2 instead and checked that and went from there. All right? You guys are doing an awesome job trying to keep up with all of your schoolwork. Please follow along with these videos. Email us if you guys have any questions. Have a great day.